Next up, strategic partnerships. No matter what product you have, whatever service you provide, the right partner can make all the difference, whether it is in-house or somebody you work with. I'm going to introduce the moderator of the strategic partnerships panel. She is really a pioneer in Southern Oregon. She's the CEO of Sunbreeze Inc., a family-owned seed-to-sale cannabis company. Please give a warm welcome to our moderator, Ms. Bree Malarkey.
All right, come on up, everybody. No problem. None of us need any strategic partnerships, right? Everybody knows everything, and they've got everything perfect. So I just want to take a minute to introduce our panel. We've got some great people here from Oregon and beyond. Just to tell you really quickly about myself, and then we'll kind of pass it on. I'm an herbalist. I've been studying plant medicine for over 15 years. And beyond herbs and plants, really wanted to embrace the ultimate mother plant, cannabis, and opened a medical dispensary in 2014, a product line, and an herb farm. So that's really me. But let's go on and introduce the rest of our panel. So please say your name and just a quick history about who you are.
Hi, I'm Pete Tramm, and I'm from Colorado. I was a co-partner in Roots RX and co-founder. We have 6 stores, recreational stores. We have 3 grows, 1 outdoor, 2 indoor, and a small medical store.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. My name is Tim Winner. I'm the president of Shadowbox Farms. We have a 35-acre farm in Williams and a corporate office here in Portland, Oregon, where we run all the administration of the company.
Hi, I'm Jordan Wellington. I'm the Chief Compliance Officer at Simplifya. We're a regulatory compliance software that helps cannabis businesses really follow the regulations and kind of stay in operational compliance. And then my night job is I do public policy and government affairs in the cannabis regulatory market. I implemented legalization on behalf of the state of Colorado and now do public policy with NCIA and really cannabis businesses all over the country on regulatory matters.
Perfect. So I was kind of joking, we all can't be all things. And when we work hard to form our organizations, we have to look and identify what are our individual strengths and what are our weaknesses. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to address. So we thought we would start by talking about how each of our organizations were formed and where we looked for strategic partnerships in our formations. For me, I'm an herbalist, I'm a visionary philosopher, I'm customer service, I'm the team development, kind of vision person. But a really big weakness for me was the business office, the financials, the accounting. And lucky me, my business partner and husband is an ex-CFO and controller in the utility industry. So when we formed our herbal products company, it was a real great partnership. We really balanced kind of the front of the house and the back of the house and have a great balance. But I wanted to open it up to the panel in forming your organizations. What were some of the strategic partnerships that you guys all looked for in how you formed your organizations?
So I was really fortunate. I lived just down the street from Aspen, Colorado, and as many of you may know, Aspen is a fairly affluent community. And because of that, I had a small medical concern, and in 2014, when we started our recreational business, basically went beating the streets and came up with my now partner, I should say, my very just recently ex-partner. And he came from Wall Street, hedge fund background, and really brought a different really unique perspective on how to run a business, and was very complimentary to what I did, which was grow cannabis and sell cannabis. And so to have somebody with a real solid financial background really made our company dynamic and really let us move forward.
Well, I'm kind of the cannabis virgin. I've been in the industry for 10 months. My background was I ran a tech company here in Portland. Prior to that, I ran School of Rock, and most notably, I helped Mark Waddles build Hollywood Entertainment. I got into cannabis because I really hated the hypocrisy of what was happening, and I thought I could make a difference. Our company was well on its way. We were about 2 years into it when I joined, although we were a case of maybe too much money and not enough thought. And so we really, over the last year, have been in a process of rebuilding our company. And so the strategic partnerships were critical to what we did in this last 11 months. Most of our agreements, most of the things we did were very old school. They were on the back of a napkin with a yellow crayon, and we had to put solid structure in place in order to grow where we wanted to do and have the foundation. We were operating without a mission. We had no values. We didn't have a vision statement. We had no brand. And so establishing all of those things over the last month. Our investors like to say that we remodeled the house. We chose to live in the house as we remodeled it. But those strategic partnerships are the only way that we were able to survive. And that's with our attorneys, that's with our PR firm, that's with our vendors, everybody through there. It's creating those relationships and those partnerships with those people, which was so critical to our success today.
So I guess in founding Simplifya, the compliance software company that I work for now, I was literally nothing, just a policy nerd that had done a lot of government affairs and kind of advising cannabis businesses on operational compliance, and had this vision and idea for a software. I just had no idea how to create a company or found a company or raise money or build any kind of tech platform. One of the things I like to say is we're Simplifya, and one of the first things I learned about a tech company is you're supposed to make up a word, but it has to sound like another word when you're like starting a tech company. So I literally knew nothing about anything. I just had this vision and understood cannabis regulation at a very fundamental level. And so I was very fortunate that Christian Cederberg, the partner of the law firm I still work with, had a friend who's now our CEO, Marion, and we sat in a conference room one day very casually, and he was like, "You can trust this guy. He's retired. He's sold 5 companies already, all tech platforms for the most part." Explained to him your idea, and our company was born that day. And he's like, "I'm coming out of retirement to run this company." And so the first strategic partner that I think I found, and like a lot of people have said, is the kind of yin to your yang, the balance to your equation where, you know, I know I can't do everything. There's a lot of things in our company I can't do. And finding those people that are really able to kind of complement your skill set and balance out, even at the very initial phase, before you even start figuring out who your lawyer and who your accountant's going to be, you need to think about your executive team, your top people, and who's going to balance out the skills there. And then you bring on additional strategic partners to kind of complement those folks.
No, I think that's a great point, especially for a lot of us that are founders and have a vision, is recognizing, you know, who can complement that. And sometimes that means that even though you're the founder, you're not meant to be the CEO, to run the organization, to have it become a healthy entity. And I remember once somebody saying, just because you're a really good plumber doesn't mean you know how to run a plumbing business. So just because you're a great cultivator doesn't mean you're gonna know how to run a cultivating business. So go to what you love, because you're gonna be doing it 90 hours a week, give or take. So put your heart and soul and where your passion is, and then surround yourself with really powerful people that can help you get that vision out there. And so sometimes that's hiring the right people to join your team, and sometimes it's going outside of your organization and really looking for a partner, maybe an independent contractor, you guys already hit on all this, attorneys, software companies, you know, especially in the land of compliance, we're really relying on a lot of third parties to really make sure our businesses are successful. And for me, when we really wanted to launch Sun God Medicinals finally up into the Portland market, I really needed a delivery and logistics company. I really believe in account management. You know, as an herbal products company, extracting 50 different herbs and plants, there's a lot of education that we need to provide our bud tenders and people out there in the market, but I needed a logistics company to actually deliver those products. When we chose to partner with Dreamfield up here in Portland because they could help me get that product out there but still keep my account manager vision going. Can you guys give everybody in the audience maybe a little example of a strategic partner that you've chosen that was outside of your area of expertise, and how you made that decision?
So I was, again, real fortunate. I had in Colorado several different legal firms that we could have gone to for legal advice, and had talked to several people about the best people to go to, and we ended up with a firm that has done amazing things for our company, and I can't say enough about having good legal representation. If you're getting into this business, it will be one of the cornerstones of your business. It has to be, and you have to have people that you trust and people that you can depend on and people you can call on a Sunday afternoon and go, how am I going to deal with this? So I would say for me, that was one of the most important strategic partnerships we were able to form.
Oh my gosh, there were so many. You know, in tech, your circle is very wide. And what I found in cannabis, it was it got narrower and narrower. And there was a lot of distrust. And when we were trying to build partnerships, it was like, well, I'm going to need to be paid in advance, or I'm going to need this. And it was, didn't realize how many people had gotten burned. And I saw that as an opportunity. I would say probably the biggest strategic partner we have is with FFE extracts. We're really good at growing. We have great genetics. We can produce a lot of marijuana. That's all wonderful. But being able to turn it into other products, and so I think building that partnership with an extract company, and they wanted to date for a long time before they would do business with us. And one of the commitments that I've made with all of our vendors is we pay our bills, and we don't overextend ourselves, and we pay our bills when we say we're going to pay our bills. And I go through with my director of finance every week, and we go through AP, and we pay our bills. And I think they were pretty surprised by that. And I think that's really important when you're developing and building strategic partnerships, that you don't burn people, and that you keep those tight and you build those relationships, because they will pay huge dividends down the road.
I guess I get to come at this panel from kind of two different directions, because sometimes I'm the strategic partner and sometimes I'm looking for a strategic partner. So I guess just to be different, I'll take the other angle is when I'm acting as a consultant, when I'm providing policy guidance or government affairs work, from the consultant's perspective, I think it's important to understand that it's really a relationship that needs to be bilateral, and a relationship that needs to function bilaterally, not just in an economic sense, but in an interpersonal sense. And so, my high-level thought here is that what you really need to be doing is find the consultant, find that strategic partner that makes sense, that fits in with the ethos of your organization, with your personality, and understands where you're going. There's a ton of consultants in this space. I think it's, one of the ongoing jokes in this industry is how quickly the consultants kind of seem to multiply and grow, and the unbelievable number of them. And it's not that, and a lot of them are great people, but you have to find the one that fits you and understands your brand and understands your value, and fits in with the way you want to run your business, because that kind of relationship, a lot of the guidance I need to give to clients when I'm in that role and in that world is not what I would do in that situation, right? It's helping them make the decision for themselves, not what Jordan thinks is the best thing for them, but what they would think the best thing would be for them if they had all the information that I have. So I'm trying to provide them with information, provide them with pertinent information, but provide it in a way that is useful for them and useful for their decision making, which means we have to get along, we have to know each other, we have to share similar values to some extent, so that the advice you're getting isn't coming out of left field, but really coming from a place that holistically works with the way that you view your business and what you're trying to accomplish.
So the next thing I really wanted to bring up, and all of us definitely understand this, is government and regulatory partnerships. And some of you in the room are probably thinking, what is this lady talking about? They are evil, they are bad, they are forcing us to be in a certain way. And the way I look at it is we are all the government. We live in a republic, and we vote for representatives to represent our interests, and we have opportunities to be involved in either legislation and the laws that are in our local jurisdictions or our state level, not so much at the federal level, but we still vote for representatives. But what can we do when then different agencies are tasked with implementing those laws, and the opportunities to influence the rules and regulations to implement those laws? And I'm talking beyond OLCC. but maybe ODA with hemp regulation, or licensing our scales, or licensing our food establishments, or OSHA, who's ensuring that we have good worker safety. And many of these different agencies out there really want collaboration and really want to be a part of a public-private partnership, because they do nothing for any of us if there is discourse. They're the ones trying to make sure that human health and wellness is protected, and the goals and the vision for us as a collective group are manifested here in Oregon. So, for example, recently we partnered with OSHA and took advantage of their consultation program and invited OSHA into our facilities. And they actually have a program that if you invite their OSHA consultants in, you are immune from any fines for a certain amount of time. And they tell you all the different things you could be doing to better protect the health and wellness of your associates and your employees, and to let you know if you're breaking any laws, which I really think was amazing. And so as all of us him and ha about OLCC and the rules changing all the time, I just want to encourage everybody to really involve themselves with different regulatory agencies. So, you know, maybe you guys can all give an example of how you've really worked with government affairs or within your own organizations.
So, as probably a lot of you folks have done too, I was actually the first recreational store in several municipalities, but I'll give you an example of one, and it was our first recreational store. I went in, you know, locally to the local government or the county government, and I was like, you know, hey, I'm here, I need to get local licensing and stuff, and people weren't so happy and warm and fuzzy about me being a cannabis guy and coming in and trying to get local licensing. I got the paperwork and left, and I was like, geez, you know, that was pretty cold reception I got. So the next time I went in, I went to a local restaurant that makes great homemade pies and stuff, and I brought a pie. And I sliced it up, and I said to the reception ladies, it was the planning department where the cannabis czars basically of this county, sliced up the pie and gave some to the receptionist and gave some to the guy that was going to be the cannabis czar. Wasn't quite named yet, but we identified who he was and that he was going to be the cannabis czar for that county. And we sat down and we ate pie. And I know it sounds simple and almost contrite, but it was such an icebreaker, and to break bread with folks and to sit down and to, you know, be on a personal level with them really made all the difference in the world, starting that relationship. And from then on, you know, I was a pie guy, and everybody expected either donuts or pie or something every time I walked in, and it worked like a charm. So I would tell you that the takeaway from that is that these are all people. They're all, in a lot of cases, great people. They're public servants, for God's sake. So treat them with respect, treat them with dignity, treat them as you would, you know, a neighbor or a friend, and you'll be surprised how well those relationships go. And I love what you said in the sense that we have to have these folks as partners, and the more they're in our facilities, the more transparent we are, the better we're going to get along with these folks. So just don't be adversarial with these people. It will serve you in no way, shape, or form. Make them your partners. Treat them again with respect and dignity, and it will go a long way for you.
That's great. Common human kindness.
Yeah, it's always remember your please and thank yous. We learn it as kids, and then we forget it at about age 20, and then live a miserable life. I think that, well, I have, you know, Josephine County, we've really reached out to them. We do the litter cleanup along the roads and do all the maintenance along Cedar Flat Road, and we work with them, and when we walk into that, into their offices, we're always welcomed, and we're not that, you know, big wreck up there on the hill. And I think we've really worked with them. I think the OLCC, you know, you all get the OLCC memo. We were hit with a pretty big fine. We used to operate under the guise of beg for forgiveness. And we don't do that anymore. And you know what? They were great through the whole process. Was it embarrassing? Sure. It certainly doesn't fit our values of operational excellence. But we were never treated rudely. And I think that was our relationship. One of the very first things I did when I started running the company was we have a compliance officer who his number one job was to be embedded in the OLCC and know everybody and be able to know the regulations. And if I had a question, I wanted to ask it and know it right there and not have to have somebody go research it. And I think having that relationship with the OLCC really attributed to that. So I think exactly what you guys all said. They're not your adversary, they're actually your partner, and you'll get to success a whole lot faster with pie than you will with fighting.
I think in all of the experiences I've had around that, that's definitely consistent with what I've seen from a regulatory perspective, right? Building relationships with regulators is kind of critical, but it's important to understand that this isn't just a local game, right? It works its way all the way up through the state and even to the federal government. I look at cannabis legalization and the end of prohibition a little bit differently than a lot of folks, given the nature of my kind of initial engagement with it. I was just some policy nerd from New Jersey that moved to Colorado, and the state was like, you go figure this out and implement legalization. And I had my little brothers back home being like, you better not screw this up for the rest of us. And so my first really emotional reaction to all of this is not that it's a right, actually, and I think it should be, but today it's not even a privilege, it's a responsibility. It's a responsibility that we have to everybody else that's not living in a free society, at least as it comes to cannabis prohibition, and doing things the right way. And that involves really changing kind of hearts and minds and stealing almost like a military term. And understanding that what we're trying to do here is kind of convince the people from outside the cannabis community that cannabis legalization is a good thing, that prohibition was not the appropriate way to structure and regulate society and control society, and that cannabis businesses can follow regulations, they can follow the rules, they can lobby and change laws at Congress. So it's following the regulations and building local regulations so you can get answers from OLCC and things like that are incredibly important. Right now the narrative is that cannabis regulation works. If that narrative shifts and businesses stop complying with the regulations, if licenses start getting pulled left and right and violations go up, we're going to see the tide turn. We're going to see the people who are not part of the cannabis community being like, well, those people couldn't be trusted, we gave them a chance. And you see that same thing going all the way up through the federal government. And when you go, I don't know how many people have been to NCIA's lobby days, but to actually go down to Congress and actually meet with people and show them the face of the people running the cannabis industry. It's a lot easier to be like, all those cannabis people are criminals when they're just some kind of faceless person. They don't have a name, they're not human, they're dehumanized in their mind. But if you go there and sit down across from them and really meet with them, it's a lot harder for them to think bad things about you, right? Because they've met you. You talk about your kids, you talk about your family, you talk about how you're just like them. You're a good person trying to do, the right by the people in your life. And so you have to build those relationships at the local level through PI. You have to build relationships with compliance officers at the state level with the OLCC to get answers to your questions. And you have to actually engage at the federal level to help everybody move this forward and understand that this is it's even beyond a business necessity. It is a necessity for our movement. It's a necessity to end prohibition. It's a necessity for our entire industry to survive.
Absolutely, that was great. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think all of us in the room have kind of had that feeling, being the beginning of legalization here in Oregon. We can't mess it up. Our dispensary in Southern Oregon and Little Gold Hill was the very first one to get a moratorium lifted. And I had to work really, really hard with the city government, and every single one of them that voted for our license then faced a recall election in the community for allowing us to open. And they all held their position. So I was really excited about that. I was like, oh no, I gotta do this right, because then Medford's not gonna open up and Grants Pass isn't gonna open up if I make a mistake here. So having that ownership and that feeling of that, hey, we can open this up. And I think we've done a great job here in Oregon, and I'd like to think that our great testing model and our organizational structure between us and the regulatory agency are models that other states are potentially using and benchmarking with OLCC and all of us. And I know that you're doing a lot of consulting work and some of the stuff that's happening in Colorado. So now that we have our organizations formed, we have great partnerships, and we have great consultants and wonderful employees, and we are working really well with our government agencies. Another big strategic partnership that I really think about is branding and promotions and how to get your brand out there, which is really important, especially, I call it the Goldilocks principle here in Oregon. We have to produce just the right amount for our citizens, or prices plummet, or there's risk of people exporting without permission. So what can we do to really promote our brands within our communities? And for me, that was public relations, and I looked at a few different PR firms, but I just personally felt that outsourcing that, I really couldn't really keep that vision consistent with our company. So we actually decided to just recently hire a brand manager in-house. But can you guys share with us a little bit about what you've done for branding and marketing and strategic partnerships and really getting your message out there in the community?
So again, we were very fortunate because we had the resources to do in-house marketing, and because we were vertically integrated, it made it very easy for us to tell a story. And at the end of the day, I think marketing boils down to a story. And you can create whatever story you want. As I was telling the panel earlier, our story is and was that we have a grow in Leadville, Colorado, which is the highest municipality in the lower 48. So in effect, we have the highest legal grow in the world. And that, if a bud tender says that to a guest, it rolls right after that, right? And they're like, well, what do you mean the highest grow in the world? And then, you know, there becomes this conversation about this grow in Leadville, Colorado at 10,200 feet, and that starts to brand. And by doing that, and by doing it on a literally guest-to-guest level, the word gets out. And as you guys know, the best way to brand yourself is by someone else branding you, and by someone that has tried your product going, those guys are great. The bud tenders are great, the product is great, the facility is great. I feel, you know, safe, warm, and fuzzy when I'm in there, and I walk out with some of the best product I've ever had. So that, in my mind, is it strategic branding? I wouldn't call it strategic branding, I'd call it grassroots branding, and I think for us, it bode very well for our business. And again, we were able to open 6 stores and be very successful. So that would be my takeaway in branding.
No, I think your customers are strategic partnerships, right? If you're doing it right and you're really able to get your mission through and they're very passionate about what you're doing, they're going to go out there and share with other people. So part of your strategy is being very true to the vision and mission with every touch point.
There you go. And I think that's so important, right? Because you can spend so much money on outside marketing and outside marketing people. As we all know, there's 50,000 people that want to be your marketing representative out there and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's you, it's what you have in that jar, and it's what you're able to purvey and educate your guests to. And if you're able to do that, you know, responsibly and in a kind manner, it goes a really long way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the foundation is the values of your company and your mission. Today when Mr. Belushi was talking about being stewards of the cannabis industry, that's Shadowbox's mission. We are stewards of the cannabis industry. And when I first started with the company, we were trying to roll out a new product, and we talked for 2 months, and they couldn't agree on what the packaging was going to look like or this, and it was very obvious that we couldn't make those decisions because we didn't know what we were. We didn't know what we stood for. And we even went out and hired a marketing firm, and they didn't know what we were, and they didn't know what we stood for. And I've heard it 100 times in different meetings that, oh, we don't have enough time for that. We don't have time for that BS. Or we can't afford that. Well, you can't afford not to do it. You have to slow down. You have to decide, what are you about? What do you stand for? Because you stand for something or you stand for nothing. And what is your company going to represent? What are you going to represent? So that your employees, too, why do they work for you? It's all of these pieces connect. And then you can talk about a strategic partner. But if you go out and hire a marketing firm, you think they're going to fix it before you've done that homework, before you've built that foundation, you're going to spend a whole lot of money, and you're going to spin around, and at the end of it, you're not going to know what you stand for. And so I think there is a step before you go strategic partner in the marketing realm. And there's agencies out there who can help you do this work if you don't know how to do it. But and that's a good investment. I had the good fortune of doing it a few times in my life, so we saved that money. But we took the time, and it took us about 3 months. And we did the homework, and we brought the team in. And what did we want to represent? What were our values? What was our stake in the ground? Our true north that we wouldn't deviate from? And what was fascinating about it is it began to resonate, and the employees started to regurgitate it, and they started to talk about it. And we had this really pivotal moment in our history of our company is we had 2 extractor machines that we prematurely bought. We had a horrible break-in. One of them got stolen. We had one left with some various parts, and we had an opportunity to sell it. But the person we were going to sell it to wanted it to be a cash deal and wouldn't fill out the IRS paperwork. And at the time, we really needed the money. We're talking about $125,000. We really needed the money. And out of the mouth of babes, our office manager said, it just doesn't feel right. And that's not part of our values. I think if we do this, Tim, we're not being good stewards. And it stopped me in my tracks because I was focused on the 125 grand and how I was going to figure out how to deposit $100,000. I wasn't thinking about, and out of the mouth of babes, and that's when you know you got it. And then we engaged a PR firm because we were able to show them our brand book. We were able to show them what we stand for. And when that begins to resonate through your whole organization, we were able to launch 5 new SKUs from January till June. We couldn't get 1 done, but we were able to do 5 because it's very easy. We know what we stand for, we know what our brand is, and we can get into a room and we can do it pretty quickly now. So I would say that's the foundation. If you think you don't have time, you better make time, especially before you engage a PR firm or a marketing firm that will take a whole lot of money from you.
This has been a really new problem that I've had to face in my career is how do you brand yourself? And in the cannabis industry, I think whether you're selling B2C or B2B, I think as Peter noted, it's really a grassroots effort. We've taken a lot of different approaches. As a cannabis compliance software company, everybody just thinks we're an inventory tracking company. Anybody that ever hears us is like, oh, you're just like MJ Freeway, oh, you're just like Greenbits, oh, you're just like FlowHub, depending on which is the talk of the town at the moment. And we're not anything like that. And explaining what we do is complicated, and what our value is kind of tricky because people don't like compliance. They don't like to follow the rules. They didn't get into cannabis because they liked following rules. My opinion is everybody in the cannabis industry is anti-authoritarian, it's true. I am too. I just want everybody to follow this one set of rules. That's it. Ignore all the other ones. Just the cannabis regulatory rules. Listen to those so we can legalize marijuana.
What about the OSHA part? Worker safety.
No,
it's
I
important.
like OSHA too. No, we'll go with the business regulation stuff, just not government criminal stuff.
Yeah,
Like
this is from
drug
the
laws.
government
Ignore
affairs
that.
guy.
Yeah, ignore the drug laws. Maybe listen to some other ones. But
Hey, Jordan, do you mind if we open it up for questions? Because we only have 8 minutes left, and I want to give people a chance to. I cut you off a little bit. I apologize.
Sure.
Let's hear it for the panel one more time. Very informative. Does anyone have a question? You guys seem to be soaking it all up like a sponge. Any questions? I'm wandering around. Come on, you guys, I stood up for this. No? You must have been very thorough.
Well, I know that, there's a lot of different kinds of partnerships in business, and we only covered a few. Is anybody dealing with any partnership issues or wondering if you should do something?
What do you do if it doesn't work out? You know what I mean? You set up a partnership, you sign the things, you do your due diligence, and it's still not great. How do you extract yourself
So if they're an employee, you terminate.
Oh, fair enough.
If it's an independent contractor, make sure you have a good contract and indemnification clauses to try to help you with that. And if it's a regulatory agency, then you're backpacking Europe. That's my approach, but what if it doesn't work out with any of your strategic partners?
So inner circle folks, you know, that core of people that run your business, it's a marriage. At the end of the day, it's a marriage. And in your case, it is a marriage. So that's what it has to be. And be very selective about that marriage, right? You don't date someone for 2 days and go, hey, let's get married, right? You date someone for 6 months, a year and a half, 2 years before you go, hey, you know what, I really like you, let's get married. So be just unbelievably selective about that inner circle. And I would much rather have a piece of the chain or a piece of the pie missing and not be able to function in that area than have a real adversarial situation, especially within that inner circle. So just be advised. Take your time. You gotta like the people you're working with. We have a saying in our business, no assholes. So there you go.
I think too, a lot of people really rush business formation, just really taking the time to have a good operating agreement, good communication of goals, involve a really good law firm unless you have those skills yourself, because the more you lay a great foundation, then you can really move forward from that.
I think they'll always go they'll always go bad at some point. Some relationship will always go bad in business. And we have a rule, and that's act in the highest sense of right, and always be respectful. And when you do get to that point, there's a way to be respectful, and I think that's what we do. And you know, as far as employees go, we hire adults and treat them like adults, and that's the way it is. And then we also expect them to act like adults. But you do get to that point where sometimes you have to break up, and I think having a high emotional intelligence, being able to be respectful and try to understand the other person's point of view, and if you act in the highest sense of right, you can usually get through those.
That's great.
I mean, I think it's so important to understand that, you know, you never want to be a bridge burner, especially in this industry. It's so small, it's so familial. People know each other, and these relationships, I mean, they go back a very long time, and even new ones seem to be deeper than in other industries that I've worked in, that there's a sense of connection and community in cannabis that doesn't necessarily exist in like the oil and gas industry or something like that. And so, you know, you have to understand both how to be a good person when you are breaking up with somebody. You know, you don't want to be the bad breakup guy. That's not good in business. It's probably not good in any facet of life as well. But you also want to have an exit plan, right? And I don't think that means every relationship you get in, you don't immediately start thinking, how am I going to get out of this? But if you do find yourself in a partnership and it's not working for you, you know, you need a plan on how you're going to, you know, end that relationship so that it's done in a manner that's respectful, a manner that's mutually beneficial, and so that you're not kind of screwing yourself along the way, right? Like, if you fire your lawyer because you're aggravated with your lawyer and you don't have a new lawyer in place or someone to take all of that paperwork from them, like, you're going to need a lawyer at some point, and if you don't have a new one, you could be picking your next attorney too quickly. You could be picking your next director of cultivation, whatever it is. And so, you know, understanding, you know, sometimes if a relationship's not working, even being upfront about it, hey, like, I think at the end of this quarter, you know, we should part ways, so everybody has notice, so you're not jumping the gun on somebody, but at the same time, you need to put a plan in place of succession. Even if it's you leaving your organization, there has to be some kind of a plan of what you're going to do next.
Did that spur any questions from anybody? There's one. I think if you're loud.
I can yell. Just real quick, if you like a sentence or a word, what are you looking for when you find a partner, or what has worked for you? Everybody's great in an interview, and everybody's awesome the first day. Then come down 3 months later, 6 months later, they're not that great. And so what, I guess just a word or a sentence of what you're actually looking for, and what has actually worked for you. As like personality traits, how they conduct themselves, business, their network, their intelligence.
For me, it is really understanding our vision as an organization and understanding that we're putting consumers first in everything that we're doing. And then being a great communicator, people that can really go back and forth and, you know, don't snowball and be willing to come in and communicate. I'm looking for people that have longevity and loyalty and able to communicate and kind of move forward. So those are the things I'm really looking for in my associates.
This is going to sound really strange, but I look for people that have long-term relationships. And I mean that on a private and a business level. So if I'm dealing with someone and they go, yeah, my best friend I've known for 2 years, that's not a good indicator for me. But if they have, several friends that they've known for 30 or 40 years, that has some real teeth to it and has some traction for me.
Yeah, I would say that, I look for emotional intelligence when I'm hiring for employees. We do a pretty thorough interview along with a panel interview so that we are getting different points of view on a candidate and not one person's making the decision. And then from a business perspective, I look for references. I look for, there's usually enough data out there, or I look for relationships that I've used in the past and rely heavily on those.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with all that, especially the values and finding people who fit your values. But I think you also have to leverage your network and your relationships, and find out what you can about these potential individuals through your friends, or talk to your friends in the industry and figure out who they've used for those kinds of situations in the past. For me, a recommendation from someone I trust is a lot more important than anything someone can say in an interview. An interview, as you pointed out, can not really be indicative of reality. And so, you want to talk to someone they've worked for, someone they've worked with in an industry this small, you should be able to find somebody somewhere along the line that or someone that, is 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon away in one way or another, and find somebody who can really give you the skinny on what's going on behind the scenes.
All right, I think that's it for our group, and the next panel's coming up, and thank you guys for listening.